morning everyone. Well, it's a very rainy day in the northeast of England here, but it's the perfect opportunity for me to get into the greenhouse and give some of the plants here some TLC, get them ready to overwinter. So what I'll do is I'll take the camera off the tripod and I'll show you the task in hand. These were Lupin seeds that my sister gave me. I haven't had great success in my garden with lupins because the slugs always get them. Hence, that is why I'm growing en masse so I can plant en masse and hopefully some of them will survive. Little did I know that all of them would germinate. And this is the sort of size that they're at. Well, a lot of them are at that size now. They've been planted in soil from my back garden, which is why there are lots of weeds and other little plants coming up, but I'm not bothered about that. All are welcome. But I've got some pelargoniums here that need some attention, more lupins down there. So my intention today is that I'm going to take these plants, chop back the leaves, just leave the freshest, youngest leaves out for photosynthesis. I'm keeping them very much on the dry side because I just feel that is the best thing to do. I did kill a lot of my pelargoniums off last year by overwatering them in January. These benches have been full of other plants, foxgloves and wallflowers, which are now planted out in my garden. But it's left this sort of mass of young plant foliage here. And I think it'll be much better when I spread them all out so that they get much more air circulation. And even though it's raining and overcast, I have kept both windows in the greenhouse open, and the door and the vents as well, because the worst thing you can do in your greenhouse in the winter is to give it lack of ventilation. That just encourages disease. Right, so I'll start off by giving this pelargonium a little bit of a haircut. So I'm going to take out any weeds here. Some foxgloves growing in there, but they're okay. I'll transplant them into the garden later on. And then just snip off, they don't even need snipping off, the dead leaves just come off. And that opens up the inside of the plant to get as much air through as possible. That's that one. This is an osteospermum. These flower heads, I'm going to snip these off. And you just take out any dead leaves, take out any dead foliage or weeds from the top. Anything that looks dead or dying, take it now, because it's just going to increase your chances of getting a virus or a disease. Right, so that looks much healthier at the back. Now this one here, that is a lovely foxglove. I'll come back later and I'll dig him out and put him in the garden. This is Lunaria, which self-seeds all over my garden, but I don't need him. Snip the flowers off. And I'm not going to water these pelargoniums again until probably next March, because you can do the finger test. The soil is but dryish. They're not growing anymore, so what happens is if you water your plants now when they're going dormant, the roots aren't taking up the water from the soil anymore, and that's what rots them. So I'm just going to let these dry out. These have been growing in my garden last year. Some of them I've put in my conservatory to enjoy them, and I'll keep those ones flowering, but these ones I'm just going to leave in the greenhouse. Right, get rid of this. Right, I'm going to find a brush and shovel, and I'm going to give this a bit of a clean down so that I can start storing the plants. So that is a weed. These are little aces. They'll just overwinter in the greenhouse here. Again, I've got a foxglove growing there. I'll come back and rescue all the foxgloves. I'm going to take this green moss off the top. He feels very wet. I've just brought him in from outside, so he'll just dry off, and I'll keep my eye on him. Alright, there. Right, so what I'm going to do is, if these will fit in here, yes, I'm going to use these trays. I picked these up from a local nursery. They just were sort of giving them away at the gate. So what I want to do here is, you can see this leaf here isn't healthy at all, but he doesn't need it. He doesn't need all these leaves over winter. So actually I'm going to take that one off as well. Take these two off. There's so many little foxgloves in here. Right. So that's what I'm left with. And that'll be fine to overwinter him. That goes there. Again, this one, pot full of weeds, but at least these plants are alive and they're healthy. And that's what I wanted. If they were growing in the garden, they would be surrounded by weeds as well. And what happened was, I was excavating some soil in my back garden, because that's where I was going to put the greenhouse, my new greenhouse in my garden. This greenhouse here was my late father-in-law's. He lived around the corner to me. My mother-in-law still lives here. It's an Aqualesia, take him out. I am actually on the lookout for, in these pots, for some campanula that I grew from seed. And I think that might be it. It didn't grow in my garden, but I found it in different pots and things. Right, he has a new leaf coming up in the centre there. Let's take this out here. I think I'll leave those two leaves on. They look nice and healthy. Put him there. You can see the roots coming out the bottom there. Lovely healthy plants, these. But I know for a fact that it's the young healthy greenery that the slugs like. I mean, look at all these lovely new lupin leaves here. So I'll take all the dead ones off. Right, I recognise him. That is a Shasta daisy. Millions of them in the garden. The dead leaves are just actually coming away in my hand. And because these lupin seeds were collected by my sister from her garden, where she's got lots of ruby red ones and yellow ones, it could be that these seeds have been cross-pollinated, so they'll not be true to the colour that she had. They might not be yellow or ruby red, but I'm hoping they will be. Take that one out. Right, now he doesn't need to struggle to maintain all these huge leaves here. So I'm just going to leave these ones, I think. Actually take him as well. So that's what I'm left with. And leaving a few leaves will allow photosynthesis to occur. And look at the lovely roots coming through the bottom there. And I'm going to keep them in the greenhouse for as long as possible. I can't even put these ones in the cold frame outside the greenhouse because I know the slugs will get in there. Little tinkers. Right, I'm just going to carry on doing more of the same and then spread them around the greenhouse. I'm really hoping that this plant here is the campanula cup and saucer. It does look a bit like a campanula leaf, and like I say, all these lovely little foxgloves. I'm just going to leave them in situ and plant them with the lupin. This little plant here doesn't look like a weed. It looks like a geranium. And because my garden is very cottage gardeny, I'm not going to take all of these individual little plants out because he might be an absolutely gorgeous geranium and he'll just sort of grow at the base of the lupin. And then we've got some kind of bulb in there as well. This is what happens when you use garden soil to put your plants up. But I like doing that if you've got the garden soil to spare, because it eases the transition between the new plant when you put it into the warm soil in the late spring. If the seedling has grown in the same soil that you have in your garden, then it doesn't have to get used to a new environment. I'm just leaving one leaf on there because I've got some beautiful little leaves coming up here. And I think this leaf here is a white aran lily that grows in my back garden. I think that's what that is. The other thing I've decided to do whilst I'm sort of cutting back and tidying up here is that from now on I'll just monitor the plants on a weekly basis, and any that are in desperate need of a drink, and lupins tell you because they wilt, I'll give them a little bit of water, because I'm noticing that the watering hasn't been consistent, and some are in very moist soil, and others are absolutely bone dry at the moment, which is fine for pelargoniums, but not the lupins. So I've got nice little lupin leaves, an arum lily, a foxglove, 2 foxgloves and 2 bulbs in there. And when these go into my garden in the spring, oh, see, I've got masses of foxgloves there. I'll cut all these big leaves off, just leave all the little baby ones there, and you've got far better air circulation around that plant now. Yeah, what I was saying was, when these go into my garden, then they'll just shoot off, and all the plants in the pot will benefit from being in the soil in the garden. Lots more room. Take this little big leaf off, because you really want them to rest over the winter. You want them to work too hard trying to get water up the leaves that you're going to cut off anyway in the spring. See, he's bone dry. So here's a good example of a plant that doesn't need all this root. I'm gathering that this root here is from this arum lily and not the lupin, because none of the other lupins are as badly congested as that. So yeah, just cut that off. And I'm just using these trays to store the individual pots in, because when you've got as many plants as I have, it's easier just to pick a tray up like that with half a dozen in than the individual pots. This is another one where the roots are hanging out the bottom. And then also in this one, I think that is Rebecca, I think. So if in doubt, leave it. But I do recognise that one. Get him out. Right, so it's an hour and a half later. I'm very pleased with what I've got done. I'll just show you. This is all of the rubbish that I've got out of those pots. So surplus leaves, lots of weeds. They're going in the green bin. So everything else, I've made sure I've left at least one little lupin leaf to keep them alive. I've lifted everything up off the floor now, all the lupins that were down below, so they'll get maximum light. And over this side of the greenhouse, I've put the ones that had become the most soggy. They'd been dripped on through the rain through the vent in the greenhouse and that. And this side of the greenhouse is definitely sunnier and drier than the other side. So yes, as I say, I'll just keep an eye on everything now and water as necessary, but very, very sparingly. Just noticed this lovely little rose scented geranium, and look at the flower on that. Isn't that beautiful? Lovely. So that's it for today. Very dirty, but very pleased with what I've got done, and I can tick that off my list tonight. So I think I'll go home now, have a cup of tea and some lunch. I just thought I would give you a little update, because someone had asked how the lupins were getting on in this greenhouse. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye bye.